Hey there, so I just finished Pet Sematary by Stephen King for the very first time, and I freaking loved it. I think it's a great horror novel. And one thing I wanted to talk about today is how Pet Sematary is able to build up tension, and it's able to keep it throughout the novel. Because tension is really important in just about any story, but I think especially in horror, it is very, very important. Whenever you're writing a horror novel, you want your readers to feel tense, you want them to feel on edge, because that's how you scare them. If people are mellow or relaxed, then they aren't going to feel anything whenever they read your novel. And so as a result, if you can effectively stress out your readers, that's how you make a good horror novel. And so the idea of increasing tension is nothing new in horror, that's something that you're supposed to do, but I found the way that Pet Sematary did it to be really effective. Simply put, in Pet Sematary, you are essentially told everything that's going to happen before it happens. This is a novel, for those unaware, about bringing things back to life. The book has a really long build-up, and quite frankly, this is something that Stephen King always does, where he just takes his time setting up characters, and it feels like anytime he writes a novel, he's in no rush at all to get it started. But I do think that whenever the ball gets rolling with this one, it does move very quickly. Basically, Pet Sematary is about a family who's moved into a new house in Maine, and there is a pet cemetery, and past that there's an ancient Indian burial ground. And the book tells you straight up, and there's an old man character, Judd, who knows a lot about this burial ground, and he tells Lewis Creed that basically the burial ground can bring things back to life, but they will come back wrong. They'll come back messed up. And this old man tells several stories of this happening. He tells about a human being buried, he tells about a bull being buried, he tells about his own experience with burying his dog there and having it come back. But in spite of all these things, in spite of the knowledge he has of this burial ground, Lewis, the main character, becomes increasingly tempted to use it. And so you as the reader know the stakes of using it, you as the reader know the problems that will come about, and so does he. But in spite of this, in spite of the fact that everyone knows that using the burial ground will cause problems, people still use it. And so this novel is able to keep up the tension by basically saying, hey, here's what's gonna happen if you do this bad thing, and then you watch people struggle to do the bad thing. And on top of that, Lewis has a daughter, Ellie, who starts having these prophetic dreams, and again, the dreams tell you exactly what's going to happen. Now, Lewis doesn't know all of these dreams because they're separated at a certain point, but at the same time, he knows enough to know that he shouldn't be using the burial ground. And so just as a reader, you are having to watch these people basically do something that they know they shouldn't do, that you know and they know is going to lead to bad results. And it's a bit like watching your friends make bad decisions, where it's like if you tell your friend that they shouldn't do something, and then you talk with them and they know they shouldn't do it, and then they end up doing it anyways and they get into trouble. It's a bit like that. And all of this reminds me of a lyric in a Nine Inch Nails song, Zero Sum. And it feels like we're living in that split second of a car crash and time is slowing down. And that to me is what this novel feels like, is it feels like watching a car wreck in slow motion. Like, you know exactly what's going to happen, you can see the crash coming on, but at the same time, in spite of your knowledge, you as a reader can't do anything to stop what's going to happen, and the characters themselves don't even seem to be able to stop what's coming. And so in some senses, the novel must be frustrating for some people, because it feels like characters are given every hint that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but they proceed to do it anyways. And so while this is very frustrating, it is very tense and stressful. And I think that's what makes this story really effective as a horror, basically, is it's able to get its claws into the reader and just hold on. This is nothing new, especially whenever you're talking about thrillers or horror, but the way it's done, I think, is something you don't see a lot, which is you typically don't know for a fact everything that's going to happen, but you're kind of given that, as I mentioned, in the form of Ellie's prophetic dreams. And there are certain things that she doesn't know, but at the same time, she knows enough to put you as the reader on edge. But one thing that I realized after reading some comments about this novel online is that even though you're told what's going to happen at certain points, it still feels like some readers are skeptical. And that to me is very strange because of the fact that there was a review I saw on the Wikipedia page that basically criticized the novel for its plot twists and said that any plot twists are easily seen, but that's what made the novel effective for me. Basically, it's just that feeling that you know exactly what's going to come. And as I'm saying, I think there are some people who maybe don't buy into it, and I think you see that a lot with the way that people interpret the ending, because in my opinion, the ending is told to you. What happens after the ending is told to you like 100 or so pages before the actual ending itself. But there are some people who it feels like maybe don't buy into it. And that in and of itself is kind of strange to me, because it means more than likely that people aren't reading closely enough, or it means that they aren't believing what they're told is explicitly about to happen. And that's something that I myself have experienced in my life before, where I've told people things and they don't believe me, and then I do them, and then they're shocked. It feels like if you try to do anything creative at all, people are always skeptical about it. And so whenever you actually do it, if you say you're going to write a novel and then you write a novel, if you say you're going to start a YouTube channel and put out a video a week, and then you put out a video a week after starting a YouTube channel, people are always shocked and people are always surprised, even though you told them exactly what was going to happen. And so I do think that the storytelling tactic of telling people exactly what's going to happen and then doing it is somewhat underrated, just because of the fact that I feel like so much of the time people want to have these cool plot twists. So much of the time authors and writers want to shock their readers and they want to surprise them. And so it feels like, as a result, if you tell your readers exactly what's going to happen, and if you show it off to them, if you show them ahead of time what is going to happen, whether it's in the form of prophecy or whether there's just an omniscient narrator that is telling them what's going to happen. Basically, if you do something like that, there will be some readers who accept it and who see the oncoming car crash, but then there are some readers who will be in denial that the events that you've said are going to happen are actually going to happen. And so that's how you catch them off guard and surprise them. Because it's a pretty common storytelling tactic to start your stories off in media res, which basically just means in the middle of the story. Uncharted 2 is an example of that. You start off with Nathan Drake hanging off a cliff, and then you flash back to the beginning and you build your way up to the train. But it's a little bit different, I think, than having a narrator say, hey, this character is going to die soon. Or it's a little bit different than having a character prophesy, hey, this very, very bad event that you think is going to happen is going to happen. And so in conclusion, I just found Pet Sematary to be a really effective horror novel because of that. Because you know that what the characters are doing is wrong, and they know what they're doing is wrong, and they're given every possible warning that they could be afforded. But at the same time, they still go through with certain events, and you watch them go through with certain events and you continue reading. That is what makes the novel effective as a horror, and I think that's why it's such a terrifying book for a lot of people, because I think we ourselves can do this in our own lives. We ourselves can recognize that situations are bad, and then we can proceed to engage in these situations anyway. We can know that someone is bad for us, and then still hang out with them. We have so many doubts, and we have so many reasons to not believe the things that our intuition tells us, though sometimes we can trust our gut, and sometimes it can be trusted, sometimes it's just flat out wrong, and we don't actually know what's going on. And so because of that, it's just really refreshing to have a book that telegraphs every movement of all the characters, and then to follow through on top of that. Because this isn't a book that really tries to trick you, I think. I think it lays out the story pretty clearly, and as I was saying, I think it lays out what happens after the ending and epilogue pretty clearly, but it's just a question of whether or not you want to believe it. So thank you for watching, have a nice night, and don't try to resurrect any dead people, and goodbye.